Welcome into the Sports Objective Podcast, impromptu version of the show, a mini version, if you will, of the Inside Slant that we'll have Friday night. We had plans of this guy joining us then. Unfortunately, his schedule will not allow him to do so, but he's been nice enough to join us this afternoon as we preview the SMU Memphis matchup this weekend in Dallas. Welcome in the play-by-play voice of the Mustangs, Rich Phillips. Rich, we appreciate you joining us.
No problem. Glad to be on with you.
So taking a look at this matchup, you have a Memphis club, and they'll be playing for the first time in 4 weeks. Meanwhile, SMU's off to a 3-0 start. So just give us a general overview. What's your take on things as we head into Saturday?
Well, it's been interesting so far, to say the least, the first month of the season. SMU had one of their games postponed as well back in week 2 against TCU, but they've gotten 3 in, one of very few teams in the country who have played 3 games and have won all 3 games too, by the way. So pretty nice start, and offense certainly getting better and better, it seems, each week.
Yeah, you mentioned that 3-0 start for the Mustangs. Memphis only playing 1 game. I guess there's some advantages and disadvantages, for the Tigers. They've had an awful lot of time to prepare for you guys, but at the same time, man, they're going to be a little rusty. It's like starting the season all over again.
Yeah, I think so. And, one of the things that might be an advantage for Memphis is they got a lot more tape to look at on SMU because they've had 3 full games they've played. And quite honestly, I talked to Sonny Dykes the other day, and his statement to me was they don't know who's going to play for Memphis. It's not like, of course, a lot of their problems have been COVID related, whether it's been guys that were positive or guys that were just contact trace. And it's not like the team is turning over a list to you of who's out because of COVID or who hasn't practiced. So they pretty much know Brady White's going to be at quarterback. I think they pretty much know DeMonte Coxey is going to be at wide receiver. And outside of that, I think it's a lot of guessing a little bit at this point.
Early on, SMU's offense is clicking. Sonny Dykes obviously comes from that air raid background, the Mike Leach tree. You bring in Garrett Riley, a guy who coached here at East Carolina for 1 season on the staff. He was the GA before that, outside receivers coach, little brother to Lincoln Riley. How does you guys feel about Garrett so far?
It's been a really good start for him. They didn't change over a whole lot of stuff because he kind of was like you were talking about, one of the disciples there of that air raid offense. And of course, he came into a situation where you got your quarterback back, you've got several of your wide receivers back, your tight ends back, almost your entire offensive line was back. The only thing they've had to do is kind of figure a few things out at running back because they had 2 seniors that were the primary guys last year. But so far, TJ McDaniel and redshirt freshman Ulysses Bentley have been great out of the gates. Bentley leads the nation in touchdown rushes and in rushing yards right now.
And Rich, the SMU offense is clicking, and there's a lot of other good teams in this league that have good offenses. But I think, when you kind of get towards the end of the year, the best teams are going to be the teams that have that offense, but the defense too. Kind of analyze SMU's defense and what you think are the strengths right now.
Still a little bit of a work in progress, I think, defensively. A lot of it's because they've had so many changes on their defensive line. This is a team that last year led the nation with 51 sacks, but the bulk of those sacks were seniors and guys that are no longer here. They did get a few things going last week, albeit against a little bit lesser competition in Stephen F. Austin, but they did have 5 sacks last week. Where I think they've really improved the best and the most is going to be in the secondary. Their 2 corners, Armani Johnson and Brandon Stevens, were first-year starters last year, so they've got another year of experience. But they've got some guys that look like they could be playmakers at the safety position, especially Chase Cromartie, who played a little bit last year as a freshman, but he really looks like he's going to be a pretty big player for them in the secondary this year.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at the passing game. Veteran quarterback, like we've already mentioned, is Shane Buechele, and just talk about you've already referenced the running backs, but just talk about some of the tremendous skill talent that Sonny Dykes and his staff have at their disposal.
Well, of course, Buechele came in last year and didn't even get to start practicing with the team until August after he had graduated from Texas and was able to complete his transfer here, and then went out and set a school record for passing yardage and passing touchdowns in his first season. And now he knows the offense this year, so that's definitely a good sign for him. Reggie Robertson is their leading returning receiver. Now, he didn't play in the Memphis game last year. That was right after he had gotten hurt against Houston, and he missed the rest of the season. But Reggie's a guy who can be a possession receiver, but he can stretch the field at the same time. He doesn't necessarily have to be that stretch the field guy, though, because of a junior college transfer they got this year. Danny Gray was the number 2 JUCO wide receiver in the country coming out of Blinn Junior College. And a couple of weeks ago, the North Texas game, we really saw his Jets on a 62-yard touchdown catch. So a couple of big-time playmakers there at receiver. And then Kylan Granson, who last year set the SMU single-season tight end records for receiving yards and for touchdowns, is back this year. So a lot of good options for Shane Buechele to throw to on this team.
We had a format change in the American, went away from divisions this year. Memphis SMU would have West Division Championship written all over it. Do you think that changes the approach at all? In terms, well, you always want to win the game, so that's always the approach. But from a mental standpoint, you're trying to finish 1 or 2 in the league to play for the championship versus trying to win a division. Do you think that changes anything at all? I mean, from a mental standpoint.
I don't think it really changes anything from a mental standpoint. The one thing it does do is you're not necessarily in danger of being eliminated if you lose this game on Saturday because, well, if you win all the rest of your games in the conference, you're likely going to be in that championship game, whereas Memphis would already, or SMU would already have the other eliminated. So I think that's really about the only change. But from a mental standpoint, especially when it comes to players, I'd be willing to bet a lot of the players don't even know, they just know they need to go out and win games to get the conference championship game.
Rich, here a few weeks ago, we talked to Billy Embody from SMU's 24/7 site, and he was talking about some of the differences with the previous coordinator and now Garrett Riley. So just talk about that and the changes that you may have seen through 3 games.
There've been maybe some subtle differences, but hey, he doesn't want to come in here and mess up a good thing. He already knows he's got a really solid quarterback. It's been about making sure here in these first 3 weeks that they get everybody on the same page, especially with the running backs. They got a veteran offensive line. 4 of the 5 starters were the starters all year last year. So I think a lot of what Garrett has done is try not to beat the fly in the ointment to make things sticky here and to mess things up because he knows he's coming into a really good offensive situation.
And Rich, with the stadium capacity, what is the capacity going to be for the game this weekend, and how's that affected? The team's ability with not having a normal crowd.
So they're doing 25%, and they've sold it out too. As a matter of fact, we declared last week a sellout. They sold it all out on season tickets, by the way, too, which is nice. It's about 8,000 or so that they're doing, and it kind of does stink because coming off a 10-win year last year and a lot of excitement and enthusiasm, they were on pace back in the spring to have a record year for season tickets in the 20 years they played at Ford Stadium. And obviously that goes out the window. But so you're looking at about 8,000, about 1,000 of those are students. It definitely changes the dynamic. But, for those of us that have been around there for a while, it unfortunately looked like a lot of games that we've seen in the previous 15 years or so that there've been some small crowds. I really don't think it affected the players much. Affected the team much either. The staff that, the band is there, so you still hear that. But it was good. I know they just enjoyed a night to actually be in their home stadium last week.
Rich, I wanted to bring up something. We talk about Garrett Riley, not changing too much from what you guys were doing under Rhett Lashley. He moved on to Miami. His offense is, he's got a former Houston quarterback. I can't think of his name right now at Miami.
Derek King, yeah.
Yeah, Derek King. His offense is clicking. Obviously, it's his show on the offensive side of the ball down at Miami. You had a chance to be around Rhett Lashley, obviously, being at SMU. Do you think he's destined to be a head coach here in the near future?
I think he'd have a good shot of it. I felt like he was a pretty strong personality in that coaching staff, that coaching group last year. And, one of the things that it has been intriguing to me about Sonny Dykes since he got here is whereas he's an offensive guy and considered a great offensive mind, he lets his coordinators coach and he lets his coordinators call the plays. And he did that with Rhett, doing that with Garrett this year. But yeah, I thought Rhett was pretty impressive, and I was happy when he got the call up, if you will, to go to Miami this year.
Taking a look at what the Mustangs have ahead after Memphis on Saturday, on the 16th, they have a trip to New Orleans to take on Tulane, a ball club that's been up and down this year. And then on the 24th, you have the Cincinnati Bearcats coming in, which is it's awesome to have another one of the title contenders coming to Dallas.
Yes, the conference schedule is pretty big right out of the gates for SMU with this game Saturday against Memphis. Yeah, Tulane's definitely won in 2 weeks. They can't overlook. That team just went to Hattiesburg last week and put 66 on the board, I believe it was. Then Cincinnati, as I mentioned, coming in here later this month. They've got some big ones right out of the gates this year in conference play.
And Rich, back to Buechele. What's been the biggest thing you think he's improved on from last year to this year you've seen so far?
I think it's just his overall command of the offense. Because, like I said, he couldn't practice with these guys until August of last year because he was in the spring still finishing up his undergrad studies at the University of Texas so he could transfer. I think it's just the overall grasp of the offense and knowing more of the intricacies about it. His arm was nothing short of impressive, I thought, last year. His ability to throw the deep ball and how well he throws it on the money has been extremely impressive. And, man, I just, looking for a 4,000-yard season for him this year. He just missed out on it last season.
Now, Rich, what year is this for you as the play-by-play voice of the Mustangs?
Well, the gray hair should tell you it's been a while. 20th season that I've been in the booth here at SMU.
Okay, I knew it'd been a while because I remember hearing your interviews down through the years on Pirate Radio when the Pirates and Mustangs had squared off. But you've had the opportunity, June Jones, and there's been some success. So how do you think this stacks up onto June Jones, Chad Morris, et cetera?
Last year was pretty amazing. I mean, they went into this Memphis game a year ago, 8-0, top 25, as was Memphis. It was a game last year that was prime time on ABC. ESPN's College Game Day was in Memphis for that game. Those are things that we have not seen around here in the 20 years that I've worked here. They've been in the game that was on game day a few times, but it was because of the opponent that game day was there. This time last year, it was because of both schools that it was there. And getting an ESPN spot this week too with Memphis. I really feel like, 10 wins last year was the first time in 35 years this program had won 10 games in a season. I just really feel like there's something a little bit different when I see guys that are being added through recruiting and transfers and whatnot. It's a different kind of athlete that's been coming in here the last couple of years since Sonny Dykes has been here. It just seems like he's got a little bit more momentum rolling right now.
Yeah, and this matchup is one that would be extremely intriguing, obviously, any year. But under these circumstances, Memphis having not played in nearly a month, and SMU having played 3 games, and the competition not having been as much as what they should face against Memphis, depending on who Memphis has at its disposal, makes this all the more intriguing on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, that's the real thing for SMU is while they are off to a 3-0 start, it is teams that they were definitely heavily favored against and expected to beat. Texas State, North Texas on the road, and then at home against Stephen F. Austin. Big step up in competition, and it's also a team they haven't done well against. I believe SMU's 3-9 all time against Memphis, and they've lost 6 straight. So definitely looking to change that a little bit on Saturday. But one of the better matchups, definitely the best matchup we've seen this season.
I watched that game with Texas State. I've watched them play a couple times this year. That might be the best 1-3 football team in America.
Texas State, yeah. That UTSA game that they won. They won that one in overtime, right? That was no,
they lost.
They lost that one. That's right. That was one that they should have won. Their kicker is the reason they didn't win that one. Yeah, they've definitely a lot of improvement at Texas State this year over what we saw a year ago from them.
Should have beat Boston College this past weekend. Blew it in the fourth.
Yeah.
Hey, Rich, back to the recruiting a little bit. And, I don't know how much, I know we know this, but nationally, how much people realize the tradition, how good SMU's been. And, here recently, past couple of years, but when they've had, the really good years here, the history, but how nice the campus is. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful campuses I've seen. And being in Dallas, I mean, it's right there in the best part of Dallas. And just with the recruiting area of Texas and Dallas, I mean, the potential is there. What's made it click now with this staff, and how far do you think they can take it?
So I think the way they started to turn the corner a little bit was by getting a few of these transfers. And I mentioned Reggie Robertson earlier on, and that's the one that Sonny Dykes points to as the guy who kind of turned things. He's a guy from Mesquite on the east, just east of Dallas, a suburb east side of Dallas. And he had originally gone to West Virginia and decided he wanted to transfer home and was able to get eligible immediately through an appeals waiver. And had success immediately, and it kind of turned the tide to where they started getting a few more of these transfers, grad transfers and whatnot that came here. And these transfer athletes are getting, a lot of them are guys that are coming home because they've gone someplace maybe bigger and haven't gotten to play a whole lot, and they come back home and they get to play right away. Shane Buechele's another example of it too. Of course, he lost his starting job at Texas and knew he could transfer here. And so the transfers kind of got the momentum going, but they've also been bringing in high school kids too that I think are at a different level from what we had seen here. Rashee Rice is another of the starting wide receivers who started playing as a true freshman last season once Reggie Robertson went out with his injury, and he's starting again this year. TJ McDaniel at running back is a kid who was about a 2,500-yard rusher at South Lake Carroll, which is part of the DFW Metroplex, that I don't know if he would have considered SMU 5 years earlier than he did, but they've really started to turn the tide there. I know some of the commits that they have going into the class of 21 too are at a different level than what they have had in years past here. But the transfer market is what really started to turn it around a little bit for SMU, and getting a little more talent here where now the high school kids are taking notice too.
Rich, final thing for you before we give you a little 15-minute break before you go on the air with the guys in Memphis. But East Carolina and SMU are supposed to square off as of right now on November 28th. And the Ponies will be coming to Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium for that one after the Pirates went to Ford Stadium a year ago. So hopefully we'll have you back on the show here a couple months.
Yeah, I hope you get to come up there too, because I saw the outside of the stadium back in basketball season, but I've not been there since they did the whole rebuild of the press box and the suites and everything. So I look forward to getting back up there. I always love going to Greenville.
Appreciate your time this afternoon, and have an excellent call on Saturday. And we look forward to catching up with you here in the next several weeks.
All right, thanks guys. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
All right, well, guys, should be a tremendous matchup. One of the top matchups in the American thus far this year, probably the top matchup, and just right off the top of my head that I can think of with conference play getting cranked up. And so, how do you think this one may play out on Saturday in Dallas?
It's in Dallas. Memphis hadn't played in a month. Lots of COVID issues. I think the Mustangs will win. I think they'll. I think what you'll probably see is them jump on Memphis early, then Memphis get their legs, make it a ball game, and then run out of steam in the fourth.
Yeah, Kyle, I agree with you. I mean, I think SMU is going to score points, and they're clicking, and they've have a rhythm. Memphis doesn't, and I think that in order to win this game, you're going to have to, be playing at your highest level, and I just think it's going to be tough for Memphis to kind of, get everything flipped the switch without playing here in a couple weeks.
And taking a look at it, the spread, or this game had actually opened as the pick'em, and now it's Memphis by 2.5, which that surprised me a little bit, given that it's in Dallas and also that they haven't played in 4 weeks. I would, at this point, I would definitely be taking SMU in the 2.5 points.
You know what? Maybe we're just reading too much into this COVID stuff, because it's kind of how we felt about Virginia Tech and NC State. But then Virginia Tech whipped the crap out of NC State. So I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. If I go with SMU in the 2.5, hopefully that one will go a little bit better than the NC State Virginia Tech pick did for me.
Yeah, no, I'm shocked to hear Memphis is actually favored in this ball game. If it was at the Liberty Bowl, it wouldn't surprise me. But it being in Dallas, that's really surprising to me.
Yeah, I guess that's the slap in the face I deserve for putting faith in the Wolfpack and Dave Dorn.
Yeah.
Well, especially the fact that it started off as a pick'em, and everybody started going to Memphis. I mean, that's surprising. Just because SMU can score. I mean, they're going to score.
I was like you. I was like you, Jay. I would have guessed that it would have started off with Memphis 4 or 5, and then it would have come down a little bit. But no, it's risen 2.5 points. So
that tells me that the folks out in Vegas have absolutely no confidence in SMU's defense.
Yeah,
none at all.
Speaking of that, the over/under guys is 75. All right.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
Well, really neither defense, but they trust Memphis's defense more. A field goal better.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the over 75. I'd still like the over.
But before we wrap this up, some of our upcoming content right here on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube channel, we'll have it's a coordinator report every Wednesday during the season. Blake Carroll, defensive coordinator, and Donnie Kirkpatrick, offensive coordinator, meet with the media via Zoom this year. And we'll have that for you here in probably 45 minutes to an hour. So check back for that. Tomorrow night, we'll have our Pirate preview. We'll catch up with David Brown of the State of Atlanta podcast and also Ben Moore of Panther Talk 24/7, Georgia State's 24/7 sports site, I should say. And then during our second half hour, Brian Meador of ECU will join us. On Friday, we'll have the Inside Slant. We'll have a pretty packed 1.5 to 2 hours on Friday night, previewing Week 5 of college football. We'll have Jeff Tarpley of Gig'em 24/7 to talk about Texas A&M and Bama. Pete Medhurst, Navy's play-by-play, will join us to talk about the Commander-in-Chief Trophy battle between Navy and Air Force. And then also Ken Levicka of FAU, their play-by-play voice, will join us to talk about their matchup with Charlotte after Charlotte had at least, I guess, 2 weeks off now because they didn't play the Tar Heels or Georgia State a week ago due to Georgia State's, or not affiliated with Georgia State, I don't guess, but whoever, the medical staff there in Atlanta, whomever it was, misreading those coronavirus tests. But we'll have those guests as well as several more from 8 till 9:30 to 10 o'clock, something like that, on Friday night. And then this weekend we'll have our Pirate football playback as well as our college football playback. The Pirate football playback will be Saturday night, and then the college football playback will be on Sunday morning, probably 9 a.m. But we appreciate you tuning in. Jay, do you have anything else before we wrap this up?
Looking forward to the game Saturday. It's going to be an important game for ECU, and I'm excited to see it. And Rich was awesome to talk to, really good guy, and I'm looking forward to seeing that SMU Memphis game too, to kind of see who can pull that out. And SMU it was such a fun place for me to play just because it's right there in Dallas, a beautiful campus. So it'll be good to watch that game on TV.
Yeah, and Pirates going down to Center Parc Stadium, the former Turner Field, home of the Atlanta Braves several years ago. This line on this game has gone back and forth. It opened at Georgia State -1, and it went up to about 2.5 or 3, I think, and now it's back down to being a pick'em. So will be very interesting to see. Hopefully the Pirates will be able to go to Atlanta and get a much-needed victory because if we're going to flirt with a winning season or have a winning season this year, we really need to win this one. A lot of folks are saying that, and it's a pretty obvious statement in my opinion, but we'll see how things go. For Jay Sonhalter, Kyle Barber, I'm Bubba Rosenbaum. You've been watching and listening to Sports Objective on Facebook and YouTube Live. We appreciate you tuning in. As always, go Pirates.